In a development that's sending shockwaves through royal circles, Prince Harry is once again at the center of a storm, and this time it's not about interviews, memoirs, or family tensions. It's about security, protection, and a battle that may be far more personal than anyone first realized. Because just 1 minute ago, new details emerged suggesting that Harry's ongoing fight for official security in the UK has reached a breaking point. And at the heart of it all, a reportedly stunned King Charles III. This isn't just a legal dispute, it's a clash between duty and independence, between royal tradition and modern reality. And what's unfolding behind the scenes may change how the public sees this already fractured relationship. For months, the Duke of Sussex has been pushing back against decisions that stripped him of state-funded protection. But now, insiders are hinting that the situation has escalated dramatically, far beyond what's been publicly acknowledged. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more complicated, they did, because what happened next didn't just raise eyebrows, it raised serious questions. Questions about safety, about power, and about how far this royal rift has truly gone. And this is where the real story begins. To understand why this moment matters, we have to go back to the beginning of the conflict, a decision that quietly set the stage for everything that followed. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped back from their roles as senior working royals in 2020, it triggered a series of consequences. Some were expected, like losing official duties and public funding. But one decision in particular would become a lasting point of tension: the removal of their automatic police protection in the United Kingdom. At the time, the decision was framed as procedural. Once Harry was no longer a working royal, he no longer qualified for taxpayer-funded security. Instead, responsibility shifted, leaving him to arrange private protection when visiting the UK. But from Harry's perspective, this wasn't just about logistics, it was about safety. Because unlike other celebrities or public figures, Harry's profile is deeply tied to his royal identity. His military service, his public role, and his global recognition all contribute to a level of risk that, according to him, cannot be mitigated by private security alone. And that's where things began to unravel. Harry argued that private security teams in the UK do not have the same access to intelligence networks as official police protection. They can't access certain threat assessments. They can't coordinate in the same way with national security agencies. And that limitation, he claims, puts his family at risk. But here's where the situation took a dramatic turn. Instead of quietly accepting the decision, Harry chose to challenge it, legally. He launched a case against the UK government, seeking the right to personally fund police protection while in the country. That's right, he wasn't asking for taxpayer money. He was asking for the option to pay for official security himself, and that request was denied. The reasoning? Government policy doesn't allow individuals to buy police protection. It's either granted based on official status or not granted at all. But behind the scenes, something else was unfolding. Reports began to surface, suggesting that Harry felt blindsided by the decision-making process, that he believed the risks to his safety hadn't been properly considered, and that the system meant to protect him had, in his view, failed. And that's when the tension escalated, because this wasn't just a disagreement with government officials. It had implications that reached all the way to the top of the royal family, including his father, King Charles III. As the reigning monarch, Charles holds a unique position, symbolically connected to both the institution of the monarchy and the systems that support it. But when it comes to government decisions, his role is constitutionally limited. Still, insiders suggest that Harry's frustration didn't stop at the policy itself. It extended to the broader system and how it responded to his concerns. And then came the legal proceedings, court hearings, appeals, public statements, each step pulling the issue further into the spotlight. But what truly shocked observers wasn't just the legal battle, it was the persistence. Harry didn't back down. He continued to push, to challenge, to demand reconsideration, and that persistence raised a critical question. Was this just about security? Because as the case moved forward, new details began to emerge, details that hinted at a much more complex story. And that's when everything changed. As the legal battle intensified, the narrative began to shift. What started as a technical dispute over security arrangements quickly evolved into something far more revealing, something that exposed the inner workings of decisions rarely discussed in public. And then came the revelations. During court proceedings, previously undisclosed details were brought to light. Information about how the decision to remove Harry's protection was made, who was involved, and what factors were considered or not considered. And what emerged was unexpected, because according to reports, Harry's legal team argued that the process lacked transparency. that the criteria used to assess his security needs were inconsistent, and that the risks he faced were not fully evaluated. But what happened next shocked everyone. It was revealed that Harry had, at one point, been willing to cover the costs of police protection himself, an offer that challenged the very framework of how such services are allocated. And yet, despite that offer, the answer remained no. That's when things took a dramatic turn. Public reaction began to shift. Some questioned the rigidity of the system, others defended it, arguing that allowing individuals to pay for police services could set a dangerous precedent. But behind the scenes, something else was unfolding. Insiders began to suggest that the situation had caught King Charles III off guard. Reports claimed that the king was stunned by the escalation, not necessarily by the legal arguments themselves, but by the intensity of the dispute and the public attention it was generating. Because this wasn't just a legal issue anymore, it was a family issue, a public issue, a royal issue, and that made everything more complicated. Because while the monarchy is expected to remain neutral in governmental matters, the personal connection between Harry and Charles added a layer of emotional complexity that couldn't be ignored. And then came the reactions. Commentators, experts, royal watchers, all weighing in. Some argued that Harry's stance was justified, that his unique position warranted special consideration. Others believed that the rules must apply equally, regardless of royal status. But as the debate grew louder, one thing became clear. This wasn't going away. And then, just when it seemed like the situation had reached its peak, another twist emerged. Reports indicated that the legal fight could continue for months, possibly even years. Appeals, reviews, further hearings, each step prolonging the uncertainty and raising the stakes, because with every new development, the gap between Harry and the institution he was born into seemed to widen, and this is where the real story deepens. Because beyond the legal arguments and public statements lies a more personal question. What does this mean for the future of his relationship with the royal family? And more importantly, can this divide ever be repaired? As the revelations continued to unfold, the answer became less clear, and the consequences more significant. Because this wasn't just about winning a case, it was about redefining a role, a relationship, and perhaps even a legacy. And that's when the fallout began. As the dust begins to settle, at least for now, the consequences of this escalating battle are becoming impossible to ignore. For Prince Harry, the impact is both practical and personal. On a practical level, the uncertainty surrounding his security arrangements continues to affect his ability to visit the UK. Each trip requires careful planning, private arrangements, and a level of risk that he has repeatedly voiced concern about. But the deeper impact is relational, because every legal filing, every public statement, every headline adds another layer of strain to an already fragile connection with the royal family. And at the center of that tension is King Charles III. While the king's direct involvement in the decision-making process may be limited, the symbolism is undeniable. To the public, and perhaps to Harry himself, the distinction between government policy and royal influence isn't always clear. And that ambiguity has consequences. It shapes perceptions, it fuels speculation, and it keeps the story alive. But what happened next added yet another dimension to the fallout. Public opinion began to split more sharply. Some see Harry as standing up for his family's safety, refusing to accept a system that, in his view, doesn't adequately protect them. Others see the legal challenge as unnecessary, arguing that stepping away from royal duties naturally comes with trade-offs, and that divide reflects a broader question. What does it mean to be a royal in the modern world? Can someone step back from the institution and still expect its protections? Or does independence come with unavoidable risks? These questions don't have easy answers, and as the case continues, the uncertainty remains. Because this story isn't over, not by a long shot. More hearings may come, more revelations may surface, and the relationship at the heart of it all may continue to evolve, one headline at a time. But perhaps the most powerful takeaway is this: in a world where tradition meets change, and duty meets personal choice, even a prince can find himself fighting for something as fundamental as security. And sometimes, the greatest battles aren't fought in public. They're fought behind closed doors, where the stakes are higher, the emotions run deeper, and the outcome remains uncertain. And in this case, the final chapter has yet to be written.